campus, Jamie Rippey, who will introduce our keynote speaker.
Good evening, and welcome to Mr. Don Asher. Don Asher is an international recognized author and speaker on the topics of career and higher education. In America, he is known for as America's job guru, as you can tell. His career books include Groundbreaking, Cracking the Hitting Job Market, which we're going to hear about all today, so please make sure you tune in. He has also written best-selling books as graduate admission essays. He has also worked on additional other books as well that are also bestsellers that he's holding up. The Overnight Resume Guide, which is down here. We also have How to Get Any Job, which is down here as well, Who Gets Promoted, and Asher's Bible of Executive Resumes, which he just held up as well. He has also co-authored numerous other books in addition to the best scholarship book for best students. He got that one, and also the Career Mastermind, as well as another one of his other books. In addition to that, he has also been quoted in the Wall Street Journal as Investor, Business Daily, and the New York Times, US Today, Boston Global, The Global, and Mail, and Salary.com. He's also been quoted in the US News and World Report. Asher holds a Master's of Arts in Human Development from Fielding Graduate University. He also has a Master's in Human Resources and Organization Development from the University of San Francisco and has a Bachelor's of Arts in Philosophy and Religion from Reed University. He's a featured speaker of over 150 times per year, including the most recent lectures and tours of Canada, Mexico, India, China, South Korea, Morocco, and as well as in Germany, where he spoke about international career trends. And also he lives in Nevada. And in addition to that, he lives all the time at American Airlines, seat 3A. So welcome, Mr. Don Asher.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you. May I have that microphone? Thank you, Jamie. All right, so this is an 8-hour workshop that I'm going to do in 1 hour, okay? So in order to do that, I'm going to ignore all of my materials, and I'm just going to teach you what I think you need to know. Will that work for you? Believe me, it's going to be a lot more fun for you than me clicking through the PowerPoint. So here we go. The most important thing for you to know about the job market is that it doesn't work the way most people think that it works. Most people think the way you get a job is by applying for posted openings. Posted openings are the fool's gold of applying for jobs. And the reason is because you think there's a job there, but the problem is you have too many friends who also think there's a job there. So let me just kind of take apart the amount of competition that applies for each position that is posted. A properly posted position draws between 200 and 700 applicants. 200 to 700 applicants. A bar in San Francisco put on Craigslist that they were going to hire a bartender. 400 people showed up. They put an automatic feed on it that just emailed people and said, the tryouts for the bartender are at 4 o'clock. Come to the bar. 400 people showed up. The bar manager was smart. He immediately called the TV station and said, I have a job applicant riot in front of my bar right now. So they ran down there with a TV camera, which is why I saw this on the TV. The 400 people were trying to get a job. 399 of them were going to go home disappointed. They interviewed the woman that got the job. They stuck a microphone in her face and said, why did you get the job? She said, I have no earthly idea. Okay, so that's the level of competition. But I need to drive this home because sometimes people think they're special. The problem is you can't be that special. You can be perfect, and there's another 100 perfect people. Let me just back this up so I can kind of help you understand it. A church in Milwaukee put in the church bulletin a little one-line sentence, we're looking for lunchroom monitors, see Sister Mary. Okay, in order to see that, you had to go to Mass, you had to get the bulletin, you had to open the bulletin, you had to read it. 200 people applied for that job, a part-time job as a lunchroom monitor at the Catholic school. You're starting to still feel the pressure of all those people. But I'm not done. When you're applying for posted openings, the people on the other end, they don't even know who you are. As a matter of fact, they don't even know if you're a human. I made a resume once for a dog. The name of the dog was Rex K9. Okay, so here's his name, Rex K9. Okay, so now you're thinking, well, how did they know it was a dog? Okay, because I put under salary requirements, I said kibbles. And their skills, I said, able to bite intruders on the buttocks if they fail to show company identification. Okay, you could not fail to see that this was a resume for a dog. So I sent this out to the top 50 corporate recruiting sites where you're applying to specific companies, and I received about 20 polite little responses. Dear Mr. 9, we are carefully comparing your background to our needs, and we'll be back in touch. They can't even tell if you're a human. So how are they going to tell if you're any good? So I'm trying to make this point. So when you apply to posted openings, I don't want to say you're wasting your time, but I will say that it's the least productive thing you could do to find a job. So I will get to what you actually do in a few minutes, but I have a couple more experiments I want to tell you about. I had a friend that bet me that people would not apply for a bad job. I said, of course people apply for a bad job. People apply for any job. She said, no, they won't. They won't. If they know it's a bad job, they won't. So I ran an ad advertising a bad job. This is literally what the ad said. Hard work, low pay, bad boss. That's pretty bad, right? Fax your resume. I received 72 applications before my fax machine wouldn't hold any more memory, and it just kind of melted down. So 72 people applied for a job, hard work, low pay, bad boss. You guys, I'm not saying you can't get a job this way, but I am saying it's not how to get a job, okay? So what do you have to do instead? Well, how big is the hidden job market? I think I'll cover that right now. Between 55 and 80% of jobs that change hands go to someone who did not apply for a posted opening, okay? That's big. I've been looking at this research all the way back to the 1970s. The highest I found was 84% going to hidden job market applicants, but just as a general guideline, 55 to 80% go to hidden job market. Now, here's the deal, okay? You don't have to be perfect in the hidden job market. In the overt job market, you have to be perfect. College students and graduate students are never perfect. You never have to hire them. You can hire somebody that did the same thing 3 years in a row recently. So in particular for college students, it's a terrible way to apply for a job. I was on a radio show in Los Angeles last year and about March. And it was one of those radio shows where it was staccato. You know, they put someone on, then they, you know, Paul and Ventura and Jane and Venice Beach, one after another. And every student, the title of the show was College Graduates Who Can't Find a Job. And one after another, they got on the radio and they said the exact same thing. I did everything I was told to do. I had 2 internships. I have a 3.7 GPA. I did everything. I have a good-looking interview suit. I borrow my dad's expensive luxury car to drive to interviews. I'm doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing, and I haven't had an interview in 9 months, and I don't have an offer of a job, and I don't have a job, okay? So every single one of them had the exact same problem. I said, how are you looking for work? They said, I'm diligently searching the internet to find jobs that are appropriate for me, and I'm applying for them with a custom cover letter every time, just like I was taught to do. Okay? I said, well, there's your problem right there. And I would try to explain to them, but you know, people get stuck on this. They really do. I'm going to teach you a different way of doing it. Can I do that? I have research that shows that if you can get 10 of your friends to introduce you to their boss, you have a 2/3 chance of getting a job. I'm going to say that again because it's a different approach. If you can get 10 of your friends to introduce you to their boss, you have a 2/3 chance of getting a job. What does that look like? You go down to work with your boss, your friend, and you're introduced to the boss. Hey, boss, I'm looking for work. I know you're not recruiting right now. I brought my resume. I'd like to just leave it with you. If it looks like it might be a fit here, just think of me. And so now you've got a name to the face. Thanks a lot. Swell. Bye. Okay? What does that take? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. That's all it takes to have a 2/3 chance of getting a job. As versus applying in your, everyone always does this. They think this is really efficacious. I'm making a lot of applications. You guys, applications will not get you a job. That's not quite, does it? What gets it, a job is appointments. When you're looking at whether your job search is going well, don't measure how many times you've applied. Measure how many times you had an appointment. An appointment is a face-to-face interview, like you would have if somebody took you to work and introduced you to their boss. That's a face-to-face interview. An appointment is a friend of a friend that you have coffee with. An appointment is somebody who agreed to look at your resume. An appointment, all of those things are appointments. If I exchange emails with this guy, that's an appointment. Applications per se are not appointments. That's your database, your computer talking to a database, and that database can't tell you from a dog. Is this making sense so far? Okay, all right. So make sure I tell you how to do it right, okay? Because I'm worried I'm just going to be scaring you the whole time. And let me just bring this up, you guys. As young people, you need to know this, and I'm proud to be the first person to tell most of you this. I want you to know this. You will be fired. Write that down. If you're taking notes, just write down, I will be fired. Did you write it down? Just write it right there. I will be fired. Now, why do I want you to write that down? Because it's true. And if you do not learn how to change jobs, then your career is interrupted, arrested, stopped, killed at that point. If you do know how to change jobs, it's not that big a deal. I lost my job. No big deal. I know how this works. And it's going to happen. The ability of people to convince themselves that they are not going to get the axe is amazing. You guys, when the forest is being cut down around you, you are at risk. Don't say, I'm a special tree. Okay, they're going to get you. Okay, this always amazes me. And your boss, and it happens when you least expect it, you will have just bought a new Beamer. And your spouse will have just got a new boat or something. And your kids are in private school. And then your boss walks in and says, you know what? I hate to do this, but you're fired. But don't feel bad. I think you're one of the best people here. As a matter of fact, we're all fired. I'm fired too. Let's go get a cup of coffee and figure out what we're going to do. This will happen to you. And this is why the career education model is king. We don't care about the first job you get out of college. We care about the fifth job you get out of college. Really good career development for colleges is when you know how to get that fifth job, not that first job. So far, so good? Making sense? Okay, all right. Make sure I tell you how to do it right. Okay, so now, it entertains me to teach you how to get through resume sorting software. So I'm gonna show you how to do it, even though I don't want you in any stacks of resumes in the first place. So I'm gonna teach you how to get through it anyway. So this is a resume funnel, and 10,000 resumes go into the top of this thing. Here they are. You know, it takes a really long time to draw them rectangularly. So if it's okay, can I just draw them circularly? You know that it's 10,000 resumes. Okay. You know, I know the paper's square or rectangular, but anyway. Here's the boss's desk, and 4 resumes come out and plop down on her desk. What does it take to get through that funnel? Okay, I'm going to tell you. When you see a posted opening, you look at every noun in that posted opening, and you put it in your resume. Every single noun. Now, you always have to be telling the truth. I don't let candidates tell lies. So there's a bunch of techniques you can use to do this, but it doesn't matter how you do it. The point is to get it in the resume. Why? Because the software is not very smart. It sorts for the words. It doesn't really sort for whether the words are used correctly or in the right place. So I hate to do this. Jason, can I do this? Can I teach them a kind of a nefarious thing that I'm joking about when I tell them about it? Listen to this. Languages. Basic Spanish, but someday I would like to be fluent in Spanish and fluent in Chinese and fluent in French. What's the computer read? Okay, don't tell fibs, you guys, always tell the truth. But that's a way of getting these words in there. What other words are they looking for? They're looking for their competitors. They're looking for their own name. They're looking for an address that's in the city where the job is. So when you're applying for posted openings, my recommendation is that you live in the city where you're applying. Now you're giving up relocation assistance to do this, but for mid-level and down, they're not going to relocate you anyway. There's enough candidates, they don't need to relocate you. So you put your name, okay, and then you put Chicago, Illinois. Now when you do that, you can't then say, I need help moving from Dayton to Chicago. You're giving that part up in order to look like a local. So they call you and say, we'd like you in the office tomorrow. And you say, yeah, I can do that if I drive all night. Why? Where are you? I'm in Dayton. Well, your resume says Chicago. Yeah, I'm moving to Chicago as soon as you guys hire me. Okay? All right? So, by the way, resumes are losing street addresses. Resumes are losing street addresses. So it's name, city, phone number, email. okay? Why? Because I can look in your backyard and see what kind of your kids' toys are out in your backyard. I can look in there easily through more than one device. And so I don't want you to have that kind of exposure to people you don't know well. Here's something I saw once. It's just terrible. I was in Tennessee, and they had on the evening news that a store was going to hire 10 people, and they had literally several thousand people were at this store where they were going to hire. And then I found out a year later that the whole thing was an identity theft scam. They gave people these forms, and it said social security number, last address, address before that, all names ever used. That's everything they needed to create backgrounds for all of these people, and they all got scammed. Be careful, you guys. That's an aside, okay? All right, so are you with me on how you get through the resume sorting funnel? I hope so, okay. Now, MBAs have made sport out of a very tricky thing, which I better not teach that. I mean, you know, you can't teach too many tricks, then you get accused of being a trickster, okay? So there's one more thing I'll say. If you can't figure out where else to put this in your resume, go to the bottom of your resume, put the word keywords, and after that, put every word out of the announcement again, okay? Now, keywords doesn't mean you have it. It just means that you want to be identified with that keyword. Capiche? Entienden? Verbum sapienti est. Yes? Okay, good. All right, so anyway, that's how you get through this funnel. But here's the problem. Here's the boss. She's happy. She went to lunch with her friend and had a martini because she thinks it's the 1990s and she missed the memo that you don't do that anymore. So she had a martini. And she comes back to work, and here's these 4 resumes, and they're sitting over here, and so she's eyeballing these resumes. And she's thinking to herself, you know, I know that one of those resumes is a liar, but I don't know which one. The lie rate on a management level resume is 25%. One of those resumes is a liar, but she doesn't know which one. When the economy's bad, that rate goes up. When the economy's good, that rate goes down. But one of those is a liar. Okay? So she's nervous about one of these. And right then this door opens, and here's your friend Stacy. She went to lunch with the boss. They both had martinis, and she's happy too. She's got your resume, and she puts it right there and says, I went to school with this guy. He's okay. This resume is different than these resumes. She prefers this resume. This is why if you can get 10 of your friends to introduce you to their boss, you're way further toward a job than applying to 2,000 places online. Am I making sense so far? Okay, all right, okay. Now, a couple more things. People don't hire you on meeting you the first time. They just don't. So you need to figure out a way to bug them. The bugging systems, what's the right tenor to them? I've talked to a lot of recruiters that say if I hear from somebody once a week, I'm pretty annoyed. If I hear from somebody less than once a month, I forgot who they are. So the magic number is more than once a month and less than once a week, okay? So I think it's every 2-3 weeks they need to hear something from you. This is where real creativity comes into play because you need to let them know you're still on the market, but you can't seem desperate. If you seem desperate, nobody wants to deal with you. So you need systems. And I recommend that you alternate modalities of contact, okay? Send them a tweet. 2 weeks later, send them an update on your resume. 2 weeks later, forward a news item to them. Hey, saw this in the news this morning. Your CFO was just arrested at LaGuardia. Thought you'd like to know. I hear there'll be some openings in accounting. Or send them a small, modest little gift. You know, hey, I remember you were interested in the new Beamer car. Here's a Consumer Reports review of the Beamers this model year. Or send them a calendar full of Weimaraner dogs. And you write to them and you say, I remember you said you had a Weimaraner dog. Here's a whole calendar full of Weimaraner dogs. Every month when you turn over and look at the new dog, remember that I still want to work for you. Okay? That's cleverness in sending them something every 2 to 4 weeks. And you need to develop a portfolio of people that you do this with. And so this is, I'm trying to teach you this different method. I told you, I promised you that I would, okay? So this is a very different method. One of my favorite candidates of all time, she made a list of 200 property companies she wanted to work for in California. the 200 top property consulting groups in California. Property consulting groups are kind of small. They usually have like a dozen to 100 people in them. They're not huge. So she went to the websites for those 200 companies and pulled 2 email addresses of officers off of it. That's 400 emails. And she did this the old school way. She literally sent 400 individual emails. Now, there are programs that will do this automatically, but she did not use them. She sent 400 individual emails, and here's what the emails all said. Every 2 weeks, she wrote to them and said, I've updated my resume since we last had contact. Attached is the new version. Call me if anything comes to mind. Maureen Daly. Okay. Now, when she started doing that, the first time she just sent it out. Hey, here's my resume. I'm in property. Call me if anything comes to mind. Then every 2 weeks, I've updated my resume. I said, you have to change your resume because you said you were gonna. I don't let candidates tell lies. She said, I think the resume's perfect. I don't want to change it. I said, you told them you're changing it. You got to change it. So every 2 weeks, she put her middle initial in. 2 weeks later, she would take it back out. 2 weeks after that, she put her middle initial in. She got phone calls from people. You're just putting your middle initial in and taking it out. She said, yeah, I am. But I'm so glad to be talking to you. I got a couple of questions for you. And so she made this connection with these people, and she began to receive input from people all over the state of California, many of whom thought they knew her somehow but couldn't remember how. And when she got hired, the headhunter that hired her said, I got your resume from 3 different people today. He said, you are a hot property. I had to meet you. And he hired her because of that connectivity. Am I making sense? You guys, this is not magic. You can use LinkedIn to find anybody now. I hope every single one of you who are in a job search are on LinkedIn and that you have all the keywords in your profile, because recruiters, both corporate recruiters and external recruiters, they're using LinkedIn instead of resumes. They're not collecting resumes. They're going on to LinkedIn and sending people in mail and saying, hey, we are hiring people like you. Would you like to join us, or do you know anyone who could would be appropriate? LinkedIn has become the replacement for resumes. So, but the technology is not the point. This is old school stuff, you guys, that works. Now, I'll tell you the fastest way in the world to get a job, and I'm going to tell you this is a true fact. Calling businesses is the fastest way to get a job. Nobody wants to do this. In particular, young people will not call anybody. How do you get business phone numbers? Association lists is the best way to get people's actual phone numbers. And in order to get that list, you'll have to join the association. That gets you phone numbers. I don't care if you just use direct dial companies. If in a major city, certain blocks have prefixes all the same. They all have the same prefix. You could random dial into those prefixes. And when someone answers, you say, I heard you were looking for a cost accountant. Who would I talk to about that? Now, because I want you to always be telling the truth, right before you call that company, I want you to say, XYZ Corp is looking for a cost accountant. Because when you say that, you will also hear it. So you can truthfully say, I heard you were looking for a cost accountant. Who would I talk to about that? And if they challenge you and say, where did you hear that? You can say, I overheard it in my neighborhood. It's true. It's true. That's the truth. That's the fastest way to your next job. That's the fastest way. Now, I'm still working on this. Now, I don't let candidates tell fibs, but I will tell you a secret. There's 23 Dr. Lees at MIT. So if you call somebody and say, I was told to call you by Dr. Lee at MIT, they will never be able to trace it back or figure it out, so they'll have to call you back. No, don't do that one. That's a joke. I don't need that one. Okay, so I'm still working on maybe you get to be a candidate. Oh, by the way, I do need to bring this up. Using these techniques, you will discover posted openings, but you are no longer approaching the posted opening as an external applicant. You're the inside candidate. And being the inside candidate has tremendous value. That's the Stacy factor that I just drew on the wall here. You're not coming over the transom with the other 400 resumes. You're one of the 3 or 4 resumes recommended inside. That's a much better place for you to be. Now, let's say that somebody says, you know, Don, we don't really like you that much. As a matter of fact, we think you're about the 7th choice. When we look at all the people we're looking at, you're not wowing us. You're 7th choice. Now, I want to bring something up. Most candidates are not dinged. A ding letter looks like this. Dear Mr. Asher, we're not hiring you for this position. We don't like you. We will never consider you for any position. Your picture is posted at the security gate. Okay? That's a ding letter. Okay, you know what those look like. We don't need you, okay? Most candidates don't get a ding letter. They actually fade away on their own. They simply disappear. They quit calling back. They don't care anymore. When you're live with somebody, you bug them every 3 to 4 weeks until they either hire you or ask you to stop. If they get on the phone and say, if you call here one more time, we're calling the police, then you stop. Okay? But if you don't hear anything that sounds like that, then they didn't ask you to stop, and you keep calling them, contacting them, using different modalities every 3 or 4 weeks. But let's say you're up for a position. You actually found something, and they're saying, you're not the worst candidate we have for this, but we do like 6 other people better than we like you. Most people would go home, become depressed, stop returning phone calls, and draw the shades. But not you, because you're not going to do that. You're going to keep in this game. A continuing interest letter looks like this. Dear Mr. Wilson, I entered with you some time ago. Still remain interested in your company. I think it's a great spot. I'd love to contribute to your company. Here's my resume in case you lost it. Give me a call if we can move this forward. And you could send them that every month. You don't have to be creative. You just have to do it. A continuing interest letter is not creative, but it is something you can do. It's not a calendar full of Weimaraner dogs, but it's something you can do. So let's talk about these other 6 people. I don't think you need to worry about the first choice person, okay? And I'll tell you why. It's an odd reason. The first choice person is a superstar. She's got multiple offers. She's like the prettiest girl in high school. She's going to get multiple chances to go to the prom. So she's going to decline because statistically she got like 5 offers and this was one of them. Statistically, never worry about the top choice candidate, okay? So she's out, okay? Number 2, second choice candidate. A second choice candidate, this is a really odd phenomenon, but people that are in the job market a while, they get really good at first interviews, but then they're not so good at a second interview. So this guy's not really competition. He looks like competition, but he's not. In the second interview, he tells an ethnic joke, orders wine with lunch, and then wipes his face on his tie. He's out, okay? So, I mean, he just did not hold up under sustained scrutiny, so he's gone. The third choice, spouse won't move. Okay, this happens all the time. You know, Manhattan, Kansas, no way, I thought you meant New York. Spouse won't move, so that's not going to happen. What do we know about number 4? We know something about number 4. What do we know about her? Liar. Yeah, liar, okay? They're looking at that resume and they say, let's call and confirm these dates or this title or this educational attainment or this income claim. And she turned up a liar. Then every time somebody came up to be a number 1 or number 2 on this list, it takes a week or 10 days. So what happened to number 5? Got a job. Yeah, happily working somewhere, okay? Oh, I'd love to join you guys if you'd have called me 3 weeks ago. I'm happily working at your competitor, okay, at more than you would pay. Okay, and then what happened to number 6? Number 6 is really interesting. Number 6 failed the drug test. Okay, so, you know, they have these blanket policies now. You guys, a drug test is an intelligence test. If you're not smart enough to pass a drug test, you're too dumb to be doing drugs, okay? So don't be doing them, okay? So she's out, so who gets the job? You do. That's staying alive. Once you become known to somebody, you have to bug them gently, never seem desperate, just don't go away. And if you don't get a ding letter, you're nudging them along. You may not even be hired this round. You may be hired the second round. We hired this guy. He seemed great. He worked 4 days and quit. That's why we're still calling you if you're still around. Sorry about you getting that better offer. You failed the drug test. That's what happened. The results just came in late. Okay. Okay, all right. I want you to ask me in a moment what are the 3 most important things to do in a job search. You won't forget, will you? Okay, all right. Now, I want you to imagine this, you guys. I want you to imagine a horde of zombies, okay? Zombies are kind of in our culture right now. So what does a horde of zombies do? Mercilessly attack. Mercilessly, relentlessly attack. So the company is a building, and you are a horde of zombies, okay? So how would that look, okay? What does the zombie do? They come up and knock on the front door. If you don't open the front door, they come over to the window, and they go like this against the window. If you board up the window, they go around to the side window. Then they go to the back door, and they try to get in the back door. And if all of that fails, they climb up on the roof and look down in the chimney. And if all of that fails, they come up through the sewer. You are 1,000 zombies. Write that down. That's a really good line. You are going to approach that company like a horde of zombies. Now, you can't do all of this on the same day. It makes the company nervous. Okay, if they look at their, I mean, honestly, I have to. I mean, here's something that actually works, you guys. Look at the website for the company, all the websites for the company. Pick every single email off of those websites and write to every single one of those emails and say, I would love to work for your company in the following role. Who would I talk to about that? That's a magic phrase, by the way, you guys. Who would I talk to about that is a magic phrase. You're not asking them for a job. You're asking them for a name, a referral. Who would I talk to about that? That's part of the 1,000 zombies approach. Now, you don't want to do this all on the same day, because if you got 5,000 emails into a company on the same day, their IT person is going to call up HR and say, hey, we're being attacked. I think it's North Korea. So that would be an example of overdoing it. Now, I would like to tell you that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing this right. That's a very important principle. If you're not uncomfortable, you are not doing this right. I'm asking you to do things that are outside of your normal comfort zone. If you would like to be comfortable, plan on being unemployed for a very long time. If you would like to become employed, then you will be uncomfortable. This is a general principle in life, by the way, you guys. If you're ambitious, you better get ready to be uncomfortable. Because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing stuff and you're not trying stuff. Now, I would like to tell you about some of the people I've known that were too aggressive. Would you like to hear about them too? It's a very short list. You're going to err on the side of not being aggressive enough. I promise you, there's no one in this room that's going to be too aggressive. But I will tell you about some people that were, I got them on one hand, the number that have been too aggressive. I had a cop that wanted into corporate security. He was a fascinating guy. He said, policing is reactive. I'm proactive. He said, I can teach you how to find drug dealers and embezzlers in any organization. I said, how? He said, drug dealers don't cash their paychecks and embezzlers don't take their vacation. It's that simple. You get lists and you go and you ask them, are you a drug dealer? And they will often say, I quit. And so I found the guy really fascinating. But here's his job search technique. He made a list of corporations he wanted to work for, got a list of their CEOs, went over and got his friends at the cop shop to give him the home address for all of these CEOs. And then he went over to their house and he would put his resume in their doorway, under the windshield wiper of their Lexus. He'd throw it in the backyard. And he would do weird things. If the guy's name was Robert, he would write, Bob, this is the fellow I was telling you about. And then throw his resume in the backyard. I mean, that's too aggressive, okay? Now, interestingly enough, he got a job really fast. One of these people that he talked to was super impressed with this drug dealers and embezzlers story and hired him on the spot. And so he got a job really fast. I'll tell you about another person that was too aggressive. I'm in my office one day and the phone rings and I always answer my phone. This is Don Asher. And this woman said, is this Don Asher? And I'm like, yeah. And she said, and you're the guy that goes around the country teaching graduate students and students how to find jobs? And I said, yes, it is I. I actually talk that way because it impresses people. Yes, it is I. And then she got to her point. She said, so did you tell a student to call us over and over on the phone 100 times? And I said, I don't know, maybe. So she's in her office and her phone is ringing off the hook all day long. And she finally goes over and says, my phone's just not stopping ringing. And she said, it looked at the call counter and it was the same number over and over and over again. And right when she was looking at it, it rang again. And she picked it up and said, who told you to do this to us? And the student said, Don Asher. And she tracked me down to complain to me. I said, well, I might have told her to call 100 times, but I definitely didn't tell her to call 100 times in the same day. She said, small difference. Okay, all right, so that's too aggressive. Now I'll tell you about somebody that did it the perfect amount of aggressive. This is in my opinion, the best thing I ever did in my whole life, okay? In my office in San Francisco, you can look out the window and look at Charles Schwab's building, okay? Charles Schwab's a big building. It's got these big, wide entrances would have the gates just like a subway, and people stream into that thing, and they use their ID card to get into that building. They stream in like a river, okay? I had a guy come to me, he was right out of San Francisco State University, and he said, I want to work at Charles Schwab. I admire their business model. We learned about them in business school. And he said, I think they're fantastic. They're creating wealth for the middle class. They're honest. They're legitimate. They're the best company to work for in America, and I want to work for them. I said, well, funny thing to say that. I can get you a job at Charles Schwab. And he said, you can get me a job at Charles Schwab? How are you going to do that? I said, if you do what I say, I will get you a job at Charles Schwab. Or at least I'll get you an offer. If you blow the offer, I can't be responsible for that. But I'll get you an offer. He said, how? I said, just, I'm going to do it. Okay, so here's what I did. Okay, I said, I need you to come tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning and stand in front of that building and wear your best suit. Now, the traders came in because the market opens at 6:30. Okay, so the traders come in at 6 o'clock. So he was over there at 6 o'clock in the morning with his suit on, and I gave him this letter and resume, and he thrust it in. I said, anyone who looks like an executive, you thrust this into their hands and stand in front of that river of people and give them this. And the letter said, when you get up to your office, I am still downstairs. I want to work at Charles Schwab. I think it's the greatest place in the world, creating wealth for the middle class. Nothing would mean more to me. I'm a recent graduate of San Francisco State, and I think Charles Schwab is the pinnacle of my future career. I'm downstairs. And he came in the first day at 9 o'clock, and he said, my phone didn't ring. I said, so what? So they didn't ring today. Go over there tomorrow and do it again. Next day, 6 o'clock, he's handing these things out. At 7:15, his phone rings, and somebody said, are you really still downstairs? And he said, yes, I am. And the guy said, okay, go to this security officer, say my name, and come up to my floor, and I'll talk to you. And I just got a letter from that guy last year. He made vice president at a ripe old age of 33, okay? He slayed and nailed it at Charles Schwab. That's the perfect right amount of aggressive. You will not be aggressive enough. Stop worrying about being too aggressive and worry. You should stay up at night saying, am I aggressive enough? I'm worried about that. Is that going to work for you? Is that going to work for you? Okay, good. I will also worry about you. Okay, all right. Now, did you have a question?
Got a question. What are the 3 most important things to do in a job search?
Oh, wow. I'm so glad you asked that, because I would like to tell you the 3 principles of all job change. And really, you guys, if you learn these 3 principles, everything else will fall into place. Okay, number 1, you get jobs by talking to people. Anything that you do that causes you to talk to people will speed up your search. And anything that you do that causes you not to talk to people slows down your search. Your computer talking to a database, is that talking to people? It's not, okay? Your computer used to talk to people and email and tweet, that's talking to people, that counts. Talking to databases does not. That's so quintessential. You get jobs by talking to people, that I would like you to circle that, put some arrows that go toward it, put it up in red in your mind, because it is the quintessential truth of job search and job change. No computer can give you a job, okay? You get jobs by talking to people. The more you talk to people, the faster you'll get a job. Number 2, you need 100 leads at all times. Now, why do you need 100 leads? You need 100 leads so you will have something to do. Most people run a job search on a handful of leads. They got 8, 9, 12 leads. You need 100 because you need something to do with 30 hours a week. Most people look for work who are looking for work full time, 6 hours a week. That's one of the reasons they're not finding a job. They're simply not working hard enough. And the reason they're not working hard enough is they ran out of ideas. You guys do not run out of ideas. Yes, doctor? That's a good question. A lead is an idea, a list of people, a posted opening, an alumni list, a church list, a friend of a friend. All of those are leads. And I'll teach you the networking method in a minute. But if you want to generate a lot of leads really fast, go to hoovers.com and get past the how does this work stage. If you actually learn how to become a skilled user of hoovers.com, you can find the nearest Mexican restaurant to your house. You can find every single software development firm with 4 people in it within 100 miles of where you would like to work. It is a very robust tool. It is a Dun & Bradstreet data reseller. It has every company in America with a credit rating, which is about 8 to 10 million companies. So you'll never run out of things if you use Hoovers.com. And you can build lists for free on Hoovers if you learn how to do it, because if you keep changing your list, it gives you samples of each one that you define. And if you want to do the handwork the hard way, you don't have to pay Hoovers. I think Hoovers is worth it if you have any money, but a lot of people looking for work don't have any money, and so it's a way of using it for free. Is that useful? 100 leads is just what you need. And it's not because we have 10 fingers and we have a base 10 number system. And I just want you to know that the 100 leads comes from the Direct Marketing Association, which says you can get a positive answer to a properly worded query between 1/2 and 4% of the time. So 100 leads places you in the very likely to get a tip that will work in finding a company that needs someone like you. That's where the number comes from. And I mean 100. I don't mean 70. I mean 100. Okay, now you need 100 leads for one more reason, and it's a really weird reason, okay? You need 100 leads so that you can abuse one of them, okay? If you've got, I don't know what I can abuse here. I don't know. We'll just use, let's let this represent something precious, okay? Okay, when you have like 7 or 8 leads, you're not going to call that guy one more time because you're thinking, hey, I only have 8 leads. If that guy gets mad at me, I only have 7. But when you have 100 leads, you'll call that guy at home on Saturday morning because you don't care because you got 99 more, okay? Okay? So you can be mean to a lead. You need enough leads that you don't treat them as precious gold. You need to treat them as an expendable, consumable item. Does that make sense? Is that dramatic enough, or is it too dramatic? Some people are looking at me as if I saw this guy eyeing the exit and looked like he was saying, where's security? To somebody else, I don't know. So that's why you need 100 leads. That's number 2. And number 3 is a very interesting point. Are you still keeping up on the 1, 2, 3, right? The 3 things that you most need to know about job change. Number 3 is you look for work in channels. Now, this might not seem like that big of a deal, but it's a very big deal. Why do you do this? You look for work in channels. Let me explain what that means. You look for a certain type of job. You don't look for openings. If you look for a certain type of job, you actually become more sophisticated as you look for the job. When you look for openings, you're kind of always the newbie. You're always running around not knowing much about the job. So you run up to somebody and you say, commercial real estate, I've been in a lot of buildings. I'd be perfect at this. You have no expertise. And then you hear over here, corporate training, I'd be perfect. I've been in school my whole life. You have no expertise. But when you have dedication to a narrow target, you develop expertise as you go along. Let me explain how this works. My favorite story of all time about job seeking was a guy named Iden, who was a brand new graduate of the University of California at Berkeley that came into my office. And we didn't take very many college students. We were really a high-end place, expensive, focused on junior executives. So he comes in, and we had open office hours on Friday. He didn't even have to have an appointment. And my staff was trained to send all the unusual, weird people to me. So they sent Iden back to see me, and he came in, and he was nervous, and he had his resume, and I said, okay, so let me see your resume. And I looked at his resume, and it was a fantastic resume. He had a new bachelor's degree in biology, but he had like a graduate level skill set. He had all these lab skills and bench skills and DNA sequencing and stuff I'd never even heard of. And I said, this is a fantastic resume. This is a great resume for biology. And he looked at me and he said, oh, I don't want a job in biology. And I said, you don't? He said, no, I don't. I want to be a residential income property manager. And I looked at him and I said, the first thing that came into my mind, what's that? Because I had no idea. So he said, residential income property manager. I said, yeah. He said, apartment manager. And then I did something mean. I said, apartment manager? You went to Berkeley to become an apartment manager? And that hurt his feelings. And he walked over to my windows and he said, that's a professional position in a city like San Francisco. See that building unit over there? That's 600 units. They have a 24-hour-a-day staff. They probably have 25 employees. He said, you see that high-rise over there, 17 stories? Every one of those is about $4 to $7 million, 24-hour staff, plenty of professional positions. And he just went through the skyline just like that. So I said, okay, you're convincing me, but this resume's not going to work. And then he said this, and this melts the heart of all career people. He said, what should I do? I'll do anything you say. Now, if anyone says that to a career person, we're going to do everything we can to help them get a job. So we were like, okay, I said, look, I will help you for free. But the first week you come in here and you didn't do what I asked you to do the last week, we're done. So I'll see you every Friday. You don't need an appointment. You can come and see me and I will move you forward. He said, how do I start? And I said, well, take this resume, go into those buildings and say, I'd like to see the manager, show him this resume and say, I know you would not hire me, but what would you need to see on this document to be interested in me? And he said, you can just walk in and ask for the manager and like that? And I said, yes, and it's one of the best ways to look for work when you have no skills at all. So I sent him out, and he came back in a week, and he said, you're not going to believe what happened. Secretly, I knew exactly what he was going to say. He said, I went into this woman's office, and I put my resume in front of her, and she stared at it for a really long time, and then she said, biology. We don't do a lot of biology around here. As a matter of fact, we try to keep biology to a minimum. So he did his speech. What would you need to see on this document to be interested in me? And she said, it's a pity you didn't take a single business course or accounting course. You have to know accounting to work here. And so Iden said, well, but I'm treasurer for my fraternity. It's a really big fraternity. For example, we buy $23,000 a year in beer alone. And so I looked at his resume, and there it was, right at the top. So the fraternity treasurer. I said, why didn't you have this on your resume last week? He said, it's not anything to do with biology. I got that resume from the department, and plus I was unpaid. I said, this is the most important reason to talk to you, this unpaid position. All of you students need to know that your unpaid positions may be much more interesting than the paid employment you may be featuring on your resume. So then I saw this line, $23,000 a year in beer alone. I said, Iden, you can't put beer on a college resume. He came back the next week and he had changed it. We buy $23,000 a year in liquid refreshments. And I said, I thought about, pointing it out, they're going to know that's beer, but you can only help people so much, and then you have to let them be themselves. So he actually added some stuff in with a little coaching, that they did budget projections and variance analysis and put it capital and operating budgets. I mean, he really did a lot for a treasurer for a fraternity. And they also put things to bid in the summer. They bid the repairs. So all of this filled up the top half of his resume and was pushing down the biology stuff. And he came in the next week and he said, I learned something really important this week. I said, what? I was in this guy's office and he said, do you know anything about the trades? And I said the trades, like trade baseball card. What do you mean trades? And the guy said carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and painting. And I said, okay, I know a little bit about all of those. We have to repair the house all the time. And we put this stuff to bid in the summers. I've vetted contractors, put bids out, done work in progress payments, all of that. So now his resume is filling up with this stuff. He came back the next week and said, I had a major breakthrough. I said, what? He said, I was in this woman's office and she said, I would love to hire you, Iden, but I simply can't. And he was crushed. He was like, why? And he said, because you don't speak Spanish. You have to speak Spanish because the whole crew speaks Spanish. If you don't speak Spanish, you can't work here. And Iden blurted out, yo hablo un poquito español. She said, where did you learn Spanish? He said, spring break. He did. He did Rosetta Stone. So his story is changing, and his resume is changing, and what he's featuring is changing. But here's something that's really important. There's a secret handshake in all disciplines. All industries have a secret handshake. When you are an insider, you can be hired. If you're an outsider, I can't hire you. You must use the secret handshake so I know that you understand the business. So he's learning that secret handshake. He came back the next week and destroyed me. He said, Don, I don't want to be a residential income property manager anymore. I said, Iden, you've been at this for 6 weeks. Dude, you're about to get a job. Don't mess this up. Don't change now. He said, no, I'm changing. I want to be a commercial property manager. And I said, wow, okay, that's maybe doable, but that's a credential position. You can't get that job in California. And he puffed up and he said, well, it's not a legal requirement and everybody works under the credential of the most senior manager. You should get out more. So it was true what he said. I looked it up. So he got a job that next week, and the information that he knew that allowed him to get the job, he had possessed for approximately 15 minutes. He's in somebody's office on Montgomery Street, and they said, I could use you as the leasing agent, but you're too young, and you don't know what a triple net lease is. And so he said, what's a triple net lease? And the guy said, well, that's the monthly rent plus a pass-through for utilities and an annual pass-through for maintenance. That's a triple net lease. He said, great, great. So he went downstairs, crossed the street, went up into a building and said, I'd like to be a leasing agent. I know what a triple net lease is. I can do utility truck design on the back of an envelope, and I can do TI with a pretty close estimate. TI is tenant improvements. He's learning the secret lingo. And then I taught him to have a prop. I said, always have a prop. So he had a laser tape. So he reaches in his pocket, and he pulls out this tape, and he says, Fred, I also have this laser tape. It's really useful for calculating whether something will fit in an office. And he said, your office is 12 feet 8 inches wide, perfect for a 12-foot carpet. And she's not wall-to-wall carpet, Indian carpet. So she was very impressed. She took this tape and starts fiddling with this tape. And she offered him a position, and the position was to be a half-time leasing agent, and the other half-time he was going to run the newsletter for the building, which she didn't like to do. And since he was a young person, he certainly would know how to do that, wouldn't he? And he, of course, agreed. And so that was his first job. Was she advertising for somebody? Absolutely not. That's what happens when you look for work in channels. I'm asking you to change the way you do this. I'm asking you to change the way you do this. Now, that's a story from college. I have similar stories from investment banking, private equity. I don't care what the discipline is. This thing works. We teach the same thing to CEOs. When CEOs need to change jobs, we use the exact same system. Now, I want to just run through one more thing here, if I could. And that's over here. Okay, now, I want to talk about networking. You guys have these slides. I'd like you to turn to them because I'm going to make a few comments that might be useful to you. So, you need 100 leads, and you need 100% of your acquaintances who can introduce you to a lead. So, this is networking. Let me see if I can get this to go full page.
It's after the PowerPoint slides in the back.
Okay. You finding it yet? Okay. So this is the magic sentence right here. Who do you know who know anything about blank? Now, what I would like you to do, because of what I know about training, I want you to do this in the real world. I'm going to give you a chance to do it right now. So I want you to fill in this blank. Who do you know who know anything about? And then put something there. Wall Street, marketing, aftermarket auto parts. If you can't think of anything else to put there, put internships at the United Nations. Who do you know who know anything about internships at the United Nations? Now, let's just do this. Who volunteers to be a guinea pig and ask the question? Who wants 200 people to help them figure out if they have a connection or not? Huge opportunity. Stand up and belt it out, and then look all the way around the room like this, really slowly at people. All right, go. Do the whole sentence.
Okay. Who do you know that knows anything about structural engineering in aerospace?
Structural engineering in aerospace. Who do you know? Who do you know? A softball buddy with a PhD in aerospace engineering that he knows personally and can hook you up with. All right, so after this meeting, you're going to be right on these two people saying, hey, I want to give you my email, let's trade emails, you got it? Okay, all right. Now, because of what I know about training, I would like everybody to grab eyeballs with a neighbor and say, who do you know who know anything about? And if you can't put anything else in that sentence, just say internships at the United Nations. On the count of three. Uno, dos, tres. Vámonos, go. Okay. Okay. Okay, oh, wait. Can you whistle like at a ball game? No? Can you do it? Whistle like at a ball game? Okay, you guys, wait, stop. My favorite on this list was I had a client who was a couturier. A couturier is someone who makes dresses that cost $10,000 to $60,000 and are usually worn by wealthy women only once. Okay, so she's a couturier, and she wanted to break into the movie business in Hollywood. And I said, well, why don't you ask your connections, the people you make dresses for? She said, no, I would never do that because they come to me as an artist, and I cannot ask them for that type of favor, and it would not look good for me. If I want to get out of what I'm doing, I want to see them for the next dress and the next dress. And I said, okay, why don't you just ask everybody? And she said, I'm not going to ask everybody. What, you mean like the guy at the corner store? And I said, yeah, like the guy at the corner store. She said, I categorically am not going to do this. And I said, okay, this is going to take a long time. So she comes back the next week and she said, Don, I was at the gym and I was looking at my trainer. Her name is Olga, and she's fresh off an airplane from Eastern Europe, and she doesn't speak any English. And she's my trainer at the gym. And I thought, I'm going to ask Olga so I can tell Don I asked somebody and prove to him this doesn't work. So she says, and they're doing something, I don't know what. Hey, Olga, do you know anybody in the movie business? And Olga said without missing a step, I know the vice president of finance at Warner Brothers. Is that somebody? Okay. You guys, these connections are normal. Once you start into this, you'll find that you can find it. You just ask everybody. When you're in line at Starbucks. Oh, by the way, don't mistake prestige for information. Okay, if a cab driver's got the information you need, then you be talking to the cab driver. Okay, this is a very important principle. I had an executive that refused to call an A&P mechanic from American Airlines, and I mean, he lived through it, but it was a hot tip he failed to do right. Always start with your mom. Your mom will take your pitch, okay? Here's a bunch of people who will help you. Those of you with handouts, my favorites on this list are numbers 45 and 46. I like them the best. Okay, so turn to this page. You guys circle these 3 lines. Don't ask for a job. Ask for advice, ideas, leads, and referrals. So circle these three lines. You have to train yourself to stop asking for a job, okay? You're after advice, ideas, leads. I'm going to say this again because it's super important. Train yourself not to ask for a job. People will not help you if you ask for a job. If you ask for information, they will help you, okay? Skip this. Go to the elevator speech, okay? I need a volunteer. Excellent, you're the volunteer. I want you to read that paragraph. Do you have handouts? Okay, he will help you out with some handouts, and I want you to read this paragraph right here that says, I'm a college major. Now, just a minute. So I'm going to throw you the mic because I want this on the tape. Listen, you guys, when you actually reach people, you have to be ready to tell them who you are and what you want. So that's called an elevator pitch. I actually had a client give an elevator speech on an elevator and got an interview with an Intel executive. She was meeting her girlfriend for lunch, looked at the badge on the guy next to her. It said vice president. She said, vice president on an elevator. I think I'll try out my elevator speech. And it worked. She got an interview. So okay, here's this. Hold that. Okay, now I want to talk to all of you college students in here, including, I'm going to talk so loud you can hear it on that thing. How many of you are undergraduates or graduate students? Okay, you have a secret power, and that is the secret power of being a student. Students are like puppies and kittens. If you call somebody up and say, I'm a student, they're going to go, oh, that's so cute. Okay? But if you call up somebody and say, I graduated last year, they're going to go, bad connection, call back in a month. And you're like, Dad, it's a landline, cut it off. I'm actually serious. Those of you who are students, do this now. You will never have a better platform than when you're a student, I promise you. Okay, I'm gonna call you and you're gonna give that speech. You're calling me, right? And you're gonna do that speech. Are you ready? Okay. Hello, college student. I understand you've been trying to reach me for several days. How may I help you?
Hi, I'm a college student majoring in psychology. I'm interested in sports administration. I am on several campus committees devoted to promoting and producing sports events, both intercollegiate and intramural. My ultimate goal will be to land in sports marketing and sponsorship sales, but I'm also interested in other areas. I got your name from the alumni office, and I wonder if you would have a moment to speak with me about the sports business.
And you're a currently enrolled college student?
Yes.
That's so cute. Come down to the office, I'll feed you lunch and get you a bunch of free tickets and introduce you to everybody.
Lunch for free?
Lunch for free. Good. Okay, all right. So, by the way, the handouts are rich documents. So I hope you'll take the time to go through each slide and think about what's in them. I'm going to jump ahead here. I'm going to jump ahead to this page right here. Getting past gatekeepers. Just circle number 3. Just circle number 3. I introduced that one after the lady called 100 times in the same day. So, did you circle it? Okay. All right. So, I want to talk about objections. When you're doing this technique, you're going to run into these 4 objections over and over again. We're not hiring. I'm too busy. Send me your resume and just apply online. So I'm giving you some scripts to use with those. So that when they say that, you just say one of these things. By the way, you guys, I studied objections linguistically. Objections are not logical arguments. They are, in fact, a modality of speaking to people. They're like a volley if you're playing tennis. One of the coolest things you can do to overcome objections is to agree with anything they say. Okay? We would never hire someone from the University of Dayton. Well, I can certainly see why you'd have that policy. Well, why did you call? Just anything you say that keeps the conversation going overcomes the objection. Am I making sense? Okay, just say yes. Okay, good. Okay, and if all else fails, you can use this letter. It's a very effective letter. So, I want to thank you for coming and wish you the best of luck. Go out there and do something different. Thank you. Thank you. One of you needs to decide who gets the 20. So yeah, it's one of these people in this front row gets this 20. So you got it.
We probably have some minutes for Q&A.
Yeah.
And then as you're thinking of your questions, I want to thank our sponsors, certainly Career Services, but also the Alumni Association, the Office of Alumni Relations, the Graduate Student Association, the GSA, who is a big sponsor tonight, as well as the Graduate School and also Student Development. So we have some time for questions for Don. Also remember the refreshments out in the lobby after we're done tonight. I'm going to give the $20 to the person who took the most good-natured abuse in the front row. So.
Give him a hand. Yeah. Yes.
Since we're all going to get fired at some point,
Yeah.
how do we walk through that with a potential employer months or years later?
Okay, one thing about being fired at different points in your career is you have to take care of your credentials, because it's one thing to be awesome in a company and that company knows that you're awesome, but when you go out into the job marketplace, your resume has to have the right credentials. I'm going to speak frankly. I have a brilliant friend who did not get a graduate degree, and she's going to be just fine if she stays where she's at because she's so brilliant. Everybody where she is at knows she's brilliant. But if you put her on paper up next to other people, she's at the vice president level, and they're looking for more in the schooling part. All of you young people, I don't know, it's going to come really fast. About 28, if you go into the marketplace, almost everybody you're competing against is going to have a master's degree. Keep your eye on that because you don't want to be like 33, you don't have the master's degree, you can't compete. So watch your credentials. Who spoke? I forgot, I lost you. Watch your credentials. Now, as far as, is there a stigma to having been fired? Not anymore. Everybody knows that everybody gets fired now. So it's not, there's no stigma later. There's no stigma then. There's certain things you need to say on your resume, such as survived 4 rounds of layoffs before I was in the chosen pool. That shows that you were not the first to go. You don't want to say, dead wood immediately identified. Is that useful, or? I'm not sure I answered your question.
Can I add to that? When
Please.
when that does happen, the way you handle that exit is hugely important. You must be very gracious.
Yeah.
Handle it really, really well, and you never know, because somebody you work with in that situation may change jobs, and remember that, and that actually happened to me. I lost a job, I tried to really make it easy for them, and several years later, that person moved on and contacted me for a position, so.
Interesting. Yeah, you should be graceful. I want to endorse what you're saying. I know a company in California, it's a public agency. They approached one person to fire them, and the woman got angry, and voices were raised, and she marched out, and so then they changed her key card so it wouldn't work, and she had to get her stuff packed by a friend and met at the front door with security. That's ugly, okay? And another woman in that same office said, oh, we don't want to tell our contractors that you're firing me because I'm incompetent, which was, I don't want to say it, but anyway, possibly part of it. Anyway, and she said, what we want to tell them is that it's an orderly transition and that it's a reduction in force and that all of our obligations will be met. And so she manufactured an entire story and got severance pay. And then she got a medical leave, and the whole thing lasted like a year. And so this one woman is met at security with a box, and the other one got a year of money out of properly leaving. So your point is well taken. Yes.
Anything different as far as going for like a federal job market?
Yeah.
For example, I was downsized and I possibly might be able to go back to school, et cetera. But I want to perhaps even work at the Veterans Administration because there's nothing wrong with me. I'm there all the time anyway as a patient.
Yeah.
But anything different, federal
Yeah.
versus
Yeah. So the question is government hiring different? Everyone will tell you that it's different. It's not really different, so bear with me here. I was giving a lecture to university officers, so that's provost, dean, vice president, president, chancellor, and I asked them, do you agree that in the majority of cases or always there's an inside candidate? Now they have very formulaic hiring. They have to identify, they have to bring 3 people in, they have to be the most qualified, there's a formula to it. 75% of those academic officers raised their hand and agreeing that there's almost always or always an inside candidate. Your job when in government hiring is to be that inside candidate. So I would do a bunch of veteran stuff. If you want to do that, I would volunteer. I would get involved in a bunch of stuff so you can put it on your resume because paid, listen everybody, paid, unpaid, full-time, part-time can be identically presented on a resume. It's not, you're not fibbing, it's just the way you organize it. Okay, so I would do those things. And then let's talk about BART engineering. BART is Bay Area Rapid Transit. And you would think that that's very formulaic hiring, and it is. But I was doing a workshop in California, and this guy came up to me, and he said, hey, Don, I want to do a testimonial before you do your workshop. I didn't know the guy from anybody. And I said, what are you going to say? He said, oh, you'll like it. So I gave him the microphone. He goes up there and he says, hey, I used Don's techniques out of his book, Cracking the Hidden Job Market. I wanted to work in BART engineering. So I got a friend of a friend of a friend to tell me when they had anything on at all. And so I started showing up when they had barbecues and when they had softball games. And I met all these guys and I put all their names in my letter. And I just got a full-time permanent hire job with BART engineering. And it was because of the names in his letter that said that he was an insider. Does that make sense? Now, that's from softball and barbecues.
I have one question. What's the single best quality a graduate can bring in for the table for any job interview?
Okay, the question is, what's the best single aspect that a college student or a graduate student can bring to the table? I would say it's enthusiasm. Recruiters are complaining about young people lacking enthusiasm and zeal. And I would also say it's knowing a lot about the company, doing your homework before you show up, and saying, you know, I know where your founder went to school, I know where you went to school, I know who you're dating. No, it's enthusiasm and knowledge about the company. And I'll push a little bit further and say that they're really looking for people who will work hard. It's increasingly difficult to find people who will work hard. I talked to a guy from a consulting company. His job was to recruit college students. He said, we can't find any of them that want to work more than 40 hours a week. So we'll say to them, this is consulting. It takes a lot of hours. How many hours a week do you want to work? And he says the students are saying, well, whatever it takes. I can work 40 hours a week, whatever you need. That's off by about 25 hours for consulting. Am I making sense? So enthusiasm, zeal, work ethic, and doing this research on the company. Jason, what do you think? Anything to add to those? Is it just like the primary things you bring into the room?
I think so. I think you can look up the list of what those who are hiring look for. And we've got a list in our office
Yeah.
too. And those are on the list. Communication skills, dependability, work ethic are always on the list as well.
Yeah, communication skills is number one right now. Yes.
What do you say to employers if they say you're too qualified for the job?
Overqualified means too expensive, too old. That's what it means. And so there are several things you can do about that. One, you can use the hidden job market, where if I'm talking to you and I like you, then I'm not going to run off your resume and get all upset over details. But another thing you can do is you can use resume writing techniques resumes are really important, you guys. All of this stuff I'm talking about, this eyeball to eyeball stuff, your document has to be right too. So I wrote 3 different books on how to write resumes. The overnight resume has all of these solutions in it, including the overqualified one, and including, you know, the one about being too old and too experienced. But you remove everything that's more than about 8 years old in your resume, remove the dates from your education, and start to make that stuff disappear. And there's other ways to do it. You can, using writing techniques, you can deflate or inflate a position. So let's say you were vice president of sales for, let's say, Smith Baking Company, vice president of sales. You can take off vice president and just say sales. Okay, that's not changing a title. Okay, and then instead of saying that you set sales strategy and drove $3 million in sales, say that you went on sales calls and helped close major accounts. That makes you, it's changing the focus and appearance of the job without telling any fibs. Am I making sense? And so that's one more thing. And even this also comes in on overqualified as well. Overqualified for a lot of people means old, expensive, won't learn. So when you go to an interview, tell them all the stuff you're learning, and this is going to sound really weird, but walk really fast. Walking really fast impresses people. When old people walk really fast, you're like, that dude's not dead yet. Okay? And so literally you walk fast to show you got it. Thank you all very much.
Thanks for coming. As a reminder, we have some snacks out in the hallway. There are a lot of alumni in the room tonight. Thank you for coming back to this workshop. Know that we serve alumni free of charge for life, and you can always call us for an appointment. That